In Life of Pi, we see Joseph Campbell's quest pattern of a hero's journey, the same one used in Star Wars, Harry Potter, and most Disney movies. Yeah, it's kind of weird to think you can compare a Disney princess to a Star Wars character. Anyways, Campbell's quest pattern follows the stages of a hero's journey, often called monomyth. These stages are sometimes organized into 3 sections: separation, initiation, and return, and these sections all hold the stages of the journey. In the novel Life of Pi, the audience sees how Pi's journey unfolds through the stages of separation, initiation, and return. The first section of Pi's heroic journey is separation. This is divided into the call to adventure, refusal of the call, crossing the threshold, supernatural aid, and belly of the whale. The call to adventure begins when Pi's father tells him that they are leaving India and moving to Canada. The family must take a cargo ship across the sea along with their animals, which they are sold to other zoos. It was announced to us one evening during dinner. Ravi and I were thunderstruck. Canada? Unfortunately, Pi wasn't too thrilled, which is when the refusal of the call came about. Now, he didn't technically refuse moving to Canada, but he didn't want to leave India along with his friends, teachers, and all the animals from the zoo. He didn't want to leave Pondicherry. Pi said, "We did not want to go. We did not want to live in a country of gale-force winds and minus 200-degree winters." That's totally understandable, though, because it's freezing here in the winter, and fall, and spring. When the ship sinks, Pi must face crossing the threshold. Pi is the only person to survive and is forced to accept the journey after being abandoned in the middle of the sea on a lifeboat, only with the company of a zebra, a hyena, an orangutan, and an adult Bengal tiger. During this stage, he found a supernatural aid, the adult Bengal tiger named Richard Parker. At first he was threatened by him, knowing how vicious of an animal he is, but he later became his companion. There were even times when Pi stated that he would not be able to contain his loneliness without Richard Parker. It was Richard Parker who calmed me down. It is the irony of this story that the one who scared me witless to start with was the very same who brought me peace, purpose, I dare say even wholeness. Belly of the whale is the next stage of Pi's journey. This is the final separation from the ordinary world. He is in the middle of the sea with no one else but Richard Parker, and there is no way of getting back to India now. The next section of Pi's journey is departure, and this is divided into the road of trials, the meeting of the goddess, woman as temptress, atonement with the father, apotheosis, and the ultimate boon. But Pi's journey does not have steps 2 and 5. The first stage in this section is the road of trials. Every day is a series of tests for Pi, but the main one is having to train Richard Parker. His knowledge of the tiger helped him tame him and generally become in control of him. Pi said, "In my case, to protect myself from Richard Parker while I trained him, I made a shield with a turtle shell. Also, I had to tame him. It was at that moment that I realized this necessity." Next is the woman as temptress. This is represented through the carnivorous island. There were plenty of food and water, and it was great to feel land and finally get off the boat. Unfortunately, after realizing there was still no chance of survival and the island was carnivorous, Pi decided to round up Richard Parker and leave the island. I preferred to set off and perish in search of my own kind than to live a lonely half-life of physical comfort and spiritual death on the murderous island. Atonement with the Father is the next stage of Pi's journey. His dedication to 3 religions allows him to have a very strong connection with God. In tragic situations, most people doubt God, but Pi never lost faith, and it brought him closer to him. Pi believed that God stays with him the whole time. "Yes, as long as God is with me, I will not die. Amen." The last stage of this section is the ultimate boon. This is when Pi's journey out at sea ended, and the boat finally reached land on the shore of Mexico. Pi said, "When we reached land, Mexico to be exact, I was so weak I barely had the strength to be happy about it." The third and final section is the return, and this includes refusal of the return, the magic flight, rescue from without, The Crossing of the Return Threshold, Master of Two Worlds, and Freedom to Live. This section starts off with the refusal of the return. Pi didn't actually refuse to return to society, but without his companion Richard Parker, it made it difficult for him, especially without any sort of goodbye. I wept like a child. It was not because I was overcome at having survived my ordeal, though I was weeping because Richard Parker had left me so unceremoniously. The next 3 stages go hand in hand with one another. The magic flight, rescue from without, the crossing of the return threshold. Pi is found on the shore by the locals. They took him to their village and cleaned him, fed him, and the next day a police car brought him to the hospital. Pi was then finished all his challenges he set out to do on his journey. Master of the Two Worlds is a stage represented by the 2 stories Pi told about his journey, the one with the animals and the one with the humans. He told the 2 stories to let people decide which one they wanted to believe. He said, "You can't prove which story is true and which story is not. You must take my word for it." And the very final stage to Pi's entire heroic journey is freedom to live. He had mastery over Richard Parker and came to understand the tiger's role for his survival, which led him from the fear of death. Once his journey was over, he was rescued and he moved to Canada. He attended the University of Toronto and his majors were religious studies and zoology. So in conclusion, Pi's journey at sea with an adult Bengal tiger and his survival is an example of Joseph Campbell's quest pattern of a hero's journey through the steps of separation, initiation, and return. Paseen Molitor Patel, a hero. After being stranded out at sea for 227 days on a lifeboat with a 400-pound adult Bengal tiger, Pi had learned to adapt to his situation by using everything he knew and stayed close with his faith. This wasn't Pi's journey. It was a hero's journey.